Up until approximately a month or so ago, I was the executive head of the IB. I was director of the IB, and I'd been doing that job for most of the 25 plus years since joining in July 1988. The IB is the Institute of Asian Businesses. It is an organisation which is an integral part of the Greater Birmingham Chamber of Commerce. It is a mini chamber, in effect, where its members are first and foremost members of the Greater Birmingham Chamber, and those members choose to affiliate to the IB, where they get added value in terms of benefits and services over what they get as a member of the Chamber. Within any community which to some extent wants to assimilate to the indigenous community, you'll always have internal differences, internal factions coming up. But I think one of the reasons why the IB has stayed the course is the foundation principles that Om Palmer put in place stood with me. And whilst he was on the committee and time he wasn't on the committee, and I say he unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago, those principles are the ones I still adhere to. He was the gentleman that was very well known, very respected within the Asian community from all faiths, chartered architect by profession. When public meetings took place at the Chamber of Commerce to see if an IB was required and necessary and supportive by the Asian business community, he put his name forward along with a number of others, and the Chamber of Commerce selected him to be the founding chair. And they made an absolute perfect choice, because he laid the foundation for the organisation for what it is now. And as I say, I was privileged to have known him through family connections, and I got a phone call from him when he realised through my brother Sanat, who was also a founding committee member, that I was looking to move on to other things, away from accountancy, and I applied for the job, and the rest is history, as they say. I had the support of my colleagues at the Chamber of Commerce, and just as importantly, with a number, not all, but a number of business people that came onto the committee. And I did my very best to make sure that at the end of the day, the organisation didn't lose its original ideas and its original purpose in terms of promoting, developing our community, in terms of simulating within the business community, but also giving the wider mainstream the best of what we as Asian people are about, and through whether it's through one-to-one meetings or through press and media, or whether it's advising, guiding committee members, the chairpersons, to give that impression, very positive impression about us as an Asian community. What had to be done for the longer term meant that for any short-term difficulties, whilst there were difficulties, I knew that I had to overcome them, whatever happened. If that meant biting my tongue, if that meant saying sorry, half-baked, if it needed to be, sorry I would say. Yeah. Knowing that if that's what meant to move forward, I'd do it.
Diplomatic role.
Very much so, because at the end of the day, you always come across self-made millionaires who have a certain level of way of doing things, because that's how they did it in their own business. And sometimes they try to bring that over into an organisation, which is bureaucracy, and it doesn't work. But I did my very best. Yes, the times were very difficult, don't get me wrong, so it wasn't all a happy relationship. But hopefully between us, when we had those difficulties, we both realised that, look, let's keep those internally. To the outside world, we can't be seen to having difficulty, because there'll be people who want to put a wedge between us, and that will harm the organisation. A number of people, I think, who saw that at the end of the day, the longer vision for the organisation was more than simply one or two individuals for the short term. Yeah. Whether it's myself, dare I say it, or whether it's anybody else on the committee. And dare I say, even within the Chamber. Yeah. Those senior managers that looks after us at the Chamber of Commerce, some of those may not have been genuinely sincere, but they've moved on. And we're still going to carry on, I hope, for a lot more years. As long as the IB provides benefit and services to Asian businesses that want to join the Chamber of Commerce and be part of IB, then there's a very good reason for that to continue. But it's more than that, isn't it? The IB is not just about getting Chamber members. It never was. I think if the IB continues to demonstrate that it upholds the principles of our community, our Asian community, our Asian business community specifically, and giving those individual members of the Asian business community the leg up
Value.
in terms exactly into how the system works, to give them an opportunity to open doors to potential business, but also to open up the mainstream into our community so that when they are looking for non-executive directors, when they are looking for board members or committee members, or they are looking for employees perhaps at a more senior level who understand the growing Asian community within Birmingham, they know that there's an organisation library they can come to, which is independent, impartial, and hopefully will give them the right kind of direction and advice they're seeking. It's trying to adjust to a new work-life balance. IB was an organisation that I joined way back in July 1988 after several years in accountancy, and it was the focus of everything that I did outside of family, and something encroached on family as well. So it was a difficult decision to make, but I wanted to make it and spend more time with my family going forward. Effectively, fostering is looking after effectively other people's children as a result of some difficulty, whether there's abuse or whether there is a issue around their safeguarding, and the local authority feels that they need to move the child away from that environment to a more safe environment, and those children are then placed with foster carers, either temporary, and temporary can mean a few days, or it can mean several months, and long-term fostering is years, literally years, where somebody is taken away from the family and that child is with you almost till they're 18 plus. That's long-term fostering. But we're temporary foster carers. I think part of being a foster carer is that you've got to be able to make that bond with a child. We're registered to look after children from newborn to 3 years of age. Although the rules have changed slightly, so that whereas in the past, once a child reached the third birthday, automatically the child will be moved on, regardless. That's changed now, thankfully. But we're still preferred to take children in an age bracket. Very young children need that love and care and attention and a bonding straight away, so that they don't miss, in some respects, the parents or relatives that they originally were bonding with. And they need to, as it were, be made happy, they need to be satisfied that they are progressing, they're developing all their milestones, both in terms of physical as well as mental development. And we as foster carers do our very best to make sure that we are a great substitute for what would have been their natural parents who would be in our place. And when it's time to go, it's an enormously difficult period. Emotionally very difficult, especially when you've had a baby particularly, or a very small toddler, for many, many months. And then to say cheerio forever, technically, it's hard. But I suppose if you couldn't handle it, then fostering's not for you. You know, you wouldn't be human if you didn't feel that sorrow when you have to say cheerio, or goodbye rather, to the children that you looked after. But I think the thing that keeps it all sane is the fact that you know from the very beginning you're playing just one part of that child's journey, and B, you know that at the end of the day, that once that job is completed, there's another child waiting, and that child equally deserves the love and attention that you gave to the child that's moved on. And that to some extent is where you feel that you're contributing to that young person's well-being and next step in life. Absolutely. I'm doing much more of the housework, the garden work. Somebody has to do it. She says, right, it's your turn now to play your part. And in fairness, that's one of the reasons why I did wanted to have a work-life balance change and to tilt it more towards my family. An ever-changing family, because as I say, we're having children that come with us, stay with us, sometimes for several months, sometimes for respite care, which means a holiday period for only 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, then they go back to the original foster carers. But whatever I do now in terms of business through my company DDM, it's fitting around my fostering care and duties and around my family commitments now, whereas before it was the other way around with IUB. I don't wear ties now unless it's a formal occasion. I've got rid of my briefcase. I wear what they call a man bag now. I don't have so many phone calls or emails that I used to. But if I was honest with myself, I do miss it madly. And it's going to take a little while before that gets out of my system. But I've got to be honest and fair to my wife. That I don't want to keep having the worries and stresses that I had with IB, which I didn't leave behind when I left work at 5 o'clock or 5:30 or 6:30, whatever it was.
Well, it's never at 5. It was always more towards 7 o'clock. Yeah.
You know, there's always people you could find who want to speak to you, want to meet up with you after work. But I suppose, like anything else, you have to move on, and that's a key thing I find that in life, you've got to, as it were, move on to new things, new challenges, and that period of adjustment needs to be, where possible, as short as possible. The longer it takes, it's more damaging to the future that you're trying to carve out. So yes, it's difficult. Yes, occasions I miss my former lifestyle, my former position, my former contacts madly. But I'm doing new things. The worries and stresses of having all the responsibilities on your shoulders for the organisation, as I did as director of the IAB, both publicly as internally, that has gone. That I understand. But it's replaced by other worries and stresses, which at the moment are not as great, although those can be quite strong. Because if a child suddenly gets injured, then there are certain things you have to do very quickly, and you have to record that. And if to some extent an investigation, whether by social services, whether by police, you need to have all the records in place as to exactly what you did, when you did it, and what the outcome was. So there is a different type of worry and stress, if I could say to you, in doing the work that we do. But it's something that you've got to manage, otherwise you wouldn't want to do it, and we do. So yes, it's a different kind. Yes, in some respects not as great, not as worrying and stressful, but at times it can be. Some of the activities that I do get involved with, which include business development with organisations like Boom TV Services and maybe one or two others, depending on how my work-life balance works out, will be to use the knowledge and experience and contacts that I have built up whilst running the IB over those years to effective use, but to be much more acute and much more accurate in the way that I spend my time, in the way that I deal with people, so to reduce what I call the unproductive elements that perhaps I used to have at the IB, knowing
which came with the job.
It did, yes, and I don't have to, and unless I can find a true justification as to what is the purpose, what is the benefit, and do I really need to go? Because I have a wife and I have children that need my company, my attention. So yes, I've got to be much more strict, much more disciplined. It's going to take a little bit more time, but I'm getting there. My son's in New York. He's working towards his green card, hopefully with a view to becoming an American citizen at some point. He's settling very well in Manhattan. He works for a large marketing PR company called Mindshare, which is part of a very large British company called WPP PLC. He's absolutely loving it. He's had a whale of a time socially as well as work-wise. You've only got to check on Facebook to see that. My daughter Devi, she works for a large financial advisory company called Towery down in the City of London.
Wow.
And she seems to be well settled, but like all parents, you hope one day that they settle down themselves. Very much so, because it's like all parents, they feel their duty is only complete with their children once they have settled down with their own families. Well, one of the things you'll find that in New York is somewhere like London, people are always on the move. Things are always happening. City never sleeps. Great place to eat. In comparison to UK, the salary that you earn compared to the food that you have to pay for, it's very, very reasonable. Very reasonable, and that's why a lot of people do eat out, whether it's lunchtime, particularly evenings, or breakfast time. And you can see why. You can certainly put a lot of weight on whilst you're over there. And clearly it's a lovely country. Many years ago when I was young, I was hoping that I would somehow find a reason to go to America, emigrate there and make something up. It didn't transpire that way, but for my son, it did. But it's like anything, it's wherever you go in the world, there's no substitute for hard work, hard effort, determination, will to succeed. overcoming obstacles, wherever you go. That is clearly important. In some respects, it's nice when you do get appreciation for what may seem to be just a job. But if people see it as far more than just a job, and they want to show that in a very public way, then it's always immensely satisfying and immensely humbling. So I was very, very honoured to receive that. And as I say, I was very honoured that he took the opportunity to present that award to me.